Imagine a morning in the Kalamili Desert, where China's northwestern frontier stretches out like a petrified ocean. No sound of cars, no trace of people, just the biting wind and the crunch of sand underfoot. Here, summer temperatures can soar to 42 degrees Celsius, winters plummet below minus 30 degrees Celsius, and annual rainfall wouldn't fill a coffee cup. Yet in this seemingly lifeless expanse, a herd of wild horses, a species once declared extinct in the wild, is staging a comeback, their hoof prints etching a new chapter in biological history onto the desert sands. As of late 2024, nearly 400 Przewalski's horses, the last equine species on Earth never domesticated, have been reintroduced into the wild by China. These animals aren't just surviving, they're relearning their instincts, evading wolves, finding water, forming herds and staking out territories, much like their ancestors did across the Eurasian steppes thousands of years ago. Within just 72 hours of release, a group of young horses located in an underground spring unknown even to seasoned rangers. No reins, no tracking devices, just raw instinct. But this isn't merely a biological triumph. Behind these wild herds lies a strategic national machine, a living gene bank, orchestrated by genetic data, rotating bloodlines in a closed-loop system, and monitored via cloud computing, right in the heart of the desert. China has done the unthinkable, transformed one of the harshest landscapes into an open-air laboratory where genetics, animal behavior, and climate adaptation operate as a unified system. While Western institutes debate resurrecting woolly mammoths with CRISPR, China has quietly brought an extinct species back to the wild, not in test tubes, but through a living, mobile, self-sustaining model. This isn't just an ecological project, it's a new form of power, where genetic data, survival behaviors, and ecosystem restoration become geopolitical tools. Join Top 10 Discoveries Official to explore this extraordinary journey, from teaching horses to fear wolves using fake scat and muzzled live wolves, to a horse Tinder system vetting genetic compatibility before breeding, from the 3 stars strategy spanning China to a transnational biological data network with Kazakhstan and Mongolia. This isn't mere conservation, it's a new biological order, managed with the precision of a superpower. Tucked away in a desolate corner of Xinjiang, where the brutal climate seems destined for oblivion, China has built one of the world's most advanced genetic conservation systems. A breathing gene bank, alive, mobile, and operating not through industrial assembly lines but through herds of wild horses. This center, located in Jimisar County, isn't a typical breeding facility. It's a field-based biological gene management model where mating decisions aren't directly controlled by humans but guided by a cloud-based computing system, nicknamed Horse Tinder. At its core are 4 satellite grazing zones, arranged like compass points, each acting as a rotational breeding unit. In each zone, a stallion leads a group of 6 to 8 unrelated mares, but no group stays put. Every spring, the entire herd is lightly sedated, transported by flatbed trucks, and rotated clockwise to new zones. This mimics natural migration and herd splitting in wild ecology, a critical mechanism to prevent inbreeding and ensure genetic exchange across lineages. What truly captivates scientists, however, isn't the grazing organization, but the intricately designed genetic monitoring system, functioning like a compact AI platform. Horse Tinder is the internal nickname researchers gave to this cloud-based genetic software, where every horse, from birth, has its umbilical cord DNA sampled and logged into a national database. The system not only compares each individual's genome against thousands of others, but cross-references it with the stud book, a genetic registry tracing the global Przewalski population since 1959. Using a red-green-yellow alert system, the software identifies ideal breeding pairs, minimizing hidden gene overlaps and risks of genetic degeneration. The results are staggering. The herd's inbreeding coefficient has dropped from 0.125 to below 0.08, a 40% reduction in genetic decline risk, a breakthrough for large mammal conservation. To put this in perspective, A 0.125 coefficient is akin to mating between half-siblings. Reducing it below 0.08 achieves genetic diversity near natural levels, a feat near impossible with an original population of just 12 individuals. Remarkably, this system doesn't require complex lab setups or on-site genome sequencers. Data is processed online, with real-time feedback on a herd management dashboard accessible even from field stations. Managers can even pull up profile pics of stallions with flowing manes and genetic diversity scores, turning the dashboard into a literal biological dating app. Nowhere else in the world is such a model deployed in a desert, with wild animals under uncontrolled conditions, while maintaining genetic integrity, instinctual behavior, and sustainable reproduction. This isn't just a conservation experiment. It's a biological infrastructure where data, algorithms, and animal behavior converge into a programmed ecological order. If the 20th century measured global power by aircraft carriers or nuclear missiles, the 21st century shows China proving that a genetic machine with hooves and a wild spirit can be a subtler, yet more sophisticated symbol of influence. No fences, no backup feed, no veterinarians on standby. In the Kalamili Desert, where monthly rainfall averages under 30 millimeters, and only 42 reliable water points dot an area exceeding 50,000 square kilometers, China has chosen to release a species once declared extinct in the wild. And each individual released into this survival gauntlet costs approximately $100,000. This isn't an exaggeration. The transport cost alone, using IL-76 military cargo planes, typically used for armored vehicles, runs about 800,000 yuan per round trip, or over 110,000 USD. Przewalski's horses are secured in padded cargo crates, flown across Eurasia with mist cooling systems to reduce physiological stress. Upon landing at a makeshift Xinjiang airstrip, they don't enter domestication pens. They enter survival training. There, humans become invisible. Staff wear neutral coveralls with no identifying colors, move silently and avoid eye contact. No one pets or names the horses. Hay bales aren't wrapped in plastic. And the training aids for survival lessons include fake wolf scat scattered along fences and real gray wolves, muzzled and paraded outside the training area. Not to intimidate, but to awaken dormant survival instincts encoded in their genetic memory. During each session, trainers don't instruct. They observe heart rates, responses to barks, recovery speed. Initial fear responses gradually give way to survival strategies. These are no longer zoo horses. They're biological units undergoing combat drills. The greatest challenge isn't the wilderness. It's the scarcity of water. A 2022 camera trap study revealed the project area has only 42 year-round water points, meaning one safe drinking spot per 1,200 square kilometers. For hoofed mammals, that's a life-or-death frequency. Scientists worried about survival conflicts with native Mongolian kulons, wild asses, which are faster and need less water. But something unexpected happened. Infrared cameras captured Przewalski's horses patiently waiting for kulons to drink first, a form of wild social adjustment, untaught and spontaneous. Instead of competing, they adapted by avoiding conflict. The survivor isn't the strongest, but the one who learns to avoid losses first. The project's value isn't just in its cost, it's a national-scale strategic test. Can a species restructure its instincts in an unsupported environment? Can an ecosystem restart when humans fully withdraw? And most critically, can a superpower shape its global image through a genetics plus behavior plus data model beyond just military might or financial investment? While Western conservation programs rely on breeding farms, cameras, antibiotics, and international grants, China has tested a closed-loop ecosystem where life tests itself. Released individuals don't carry satellite chips that can be remotely disabled, only lightweight GPS trackers for real-time movement monitoring, without interference. They don't track to intervene, they track to understand. Can nature self-correct when no longer controlled? A $100,000 per horse cost sounds steep, But if it's the price to revive a species, restore an ecosystem, and reposition a nation on the global biological map, it might be the cheapest investment of this century. Why would a country spend $100,000 to release a single horse into a desert? The answer lies not in biology, but in strategy. The Przewalski's horse restoration project in Xinjiang isn't just conservation. It's a small-scale geopolitical experiment where China is actively designing an independent conservation model free from Western reliance, aimed at reshaping the global ecological arena. Global conservation has long been tied to Western institutions. Major projects often require WWF's stamp, Smithsonian funding, or U.S. university consultants. But in Jamasar and Kalamili, none of these names appear. China didn't wait for aid or Western experts to fly in. They built a conservation model on a domestic formula. From genetic techniques to behavioral training to operational funding, all handled by Chinese institutions, research centers, and companies. A striking example, a domestic dairy conglomerate funded the entire genome sequencing of the horse population, not out of environmental passion, but to print Przewalski's horse images on milk carton lids as a symbol of vitality and pure genetics, boosting their organic milk marketing campaign. Commerce and biology aren't separate. This is a new conservation model. Businesses invest, ecosystems benefit, the nation gains image points, and genetic data becomes a strategic asset. Beyond domestic borders, China is exporting ecological influence through regional cooperation. In 2024, Kazakhstan received its first shipment of horses from China. 3 young horses flown to eastern Kazakhstan's mountains on a Czech Army Air Force transport plane under a cross-border conservation agreement. But the real kicker is the exchange terms. China didn't ask for money but traded horses for access to data on Kazakhstan's wolf migration patterns and Kulan herds. Data invaluable for designing behavioral compatibility in future horse generations. This isn't conservation, it's biological trade, where genes become a commodity on par with technology or mineral resources. To the north, Mongolia is also part of this network through the Gobi Bee Reserve, where China and Mongolia share data via satellite imagery and camera traps to synchronize monitoring of rare grazing species. In 2023, a team from Xinjiang University conducted a 20-day survey in Gobi Bee, returning with GPS data accurate to under 5 meters, used to map winter migration corridors for China's horse herds. This exemplifies what analysts call an ecological BRI, a variant of the Belt and Road Initiative focused on environmental cooperation, biological data, and cross-border conservation. What's the geopolitical significance? It shows China building a non-economic influence ecosystem, where soft power comes not from Hollywood or Harvard, but from healthy, genetically diverse horse herds with social behaviors, genetic diversity scores above 0.25, and the ability to thrive in brutal deserts. In a globalized world where Western institutions are losing universal representation, China's conservation without America model is emerging as a viable alternative, especially for Central Asia, the Middle East, and Africa. Regions short on infrastructure, but rich in wild spaces. By proactively offering breeds, gene management technology, and field conservation models, China isn't just selling ecological solutions. It's expanding its influence frontier through the power of life itself. No armies, no security packs, just data, herds, and DNA. A project's true success lies in its scalability, and that's exactly what China is pursuing with Project 3 Stars, a strategy extending to 2035, aiming to establish 3 self-sustaining, self-breeding, self-adapting Przewalski's horse populations, each with at least 150 reproductive individuals. This isn't just a biological goal, it's a plan to embed genetic systems into the national map, spatially distribute ecological risks, and replicate the living gene bank model across diverse terrains, from steppes to highlands. The 3 chosen or under consideration locations aren't random. They represent 3 distinct ecosystems: humid climates, industrial semi-deserts, and cold highland waters. First is Daqingshan in Inner Mongolia's National Reserve, about 700 kilometers east of Kalamyli. Higher, wetter, and with vegetation 2.3 times denser than Kalamyli, this area has summer humidity often above 55%, aiding grass digestion and reducing heat stress. Data from the Fengyun 3D satellite shows 85 to 110 millimeters of monthly rainfall at summer peaks, triple that of Xinjiang's test site. This means herds here travel less for water, expend less energy, and face lower foal mortality. Just 30 days after release, cameras recorded the first mating between two young horses from different herds, a highly promising sign of natural reproductive behavior recovery. Second is the Hexi corridor in Gansu province. Unique for its proximity to the newly completed Lanzhou-Urumqi high-speed highway, 2021. This site wasn't chosen for ecology, but to test urban noise immunity, how Przewalski's horses react to industrial sounds, radar signals, and high vehicle frequency. Acoustic sensors from China's Institute of Acoustics show highway noise reduces stallion communication range by only 10%, still safe for maintaining herd dominance behaviors. A curious finding after 60 days, plain-born stallions hesitated to enter dense shrub areas, while mares led movements and chose grazing sites, reversing typical gender roles. This could spark new research into environmental impacts on social structures. Finally, an unconfirmed site, Qinghai Lake, at over 3,000 meters above sea level, with cold climates, snow, and China's largest freshwater ecosystem. If approved, it would be the first attempt at a semi-alpine wild horse model. Researchers from Qinghai University are surveying southern lakeside vegetation, a mix of steppe grasses and cold-tolerant plants like Cubricea pygmaea. By 2026, the first 10 individuals are slated for trial release. Expanding here isn't just biological, it symbolically plants the living gene model in the heart of Western China's highland ecological zone, long overlooked due to altitude and infrastructure limits. Strategically, Project 3 Stars isn't just conservation, it's the replication of biological survival capacity across territorial scales. Distributing three populations thousands of kilometers apart mitigates systemic risks from disease, disasters, or environmental behavioral disruptions. It's the "don't put all eggs in one basket" mindset, akin to how the US scatters military data centers or banks store gold in multiple countries. If all goes to plan, by 2035, China will have a self-regulating biological triangle, 3 lead herds, 3 representative ecosystems, and 3 independent gene management models, all monitored, coordinated, and adjusted via a central genetics platform. A nation's strength can be measured by its military, economy, or technology. But if judged by its ability to revive an extinct species and turn it into a self-operating ecosystem, China may be a step ahead. What shocks scientists isn't just that an extinct species was revived. It's that this species, returned to the wild, exhibits biological traits so superior that even veteran geneticists are stunned. Recent findings from Xinjiang University's Sequencing Center and Beijing's Institute of Animal Science have unveiled groundbreaking data, suggesting Przewalski's horses aren't just surviving, they may be the world's healthiest wild-hoofed mammals today. First is their genetic immune system, the primary biological shield for any species in harsh environments. In typical domestic horses, the number of alleles in the major histocompatibility complex, MHC, ranges from 6 to 8, enough to combat common viruses and parasites. But in genetic samples from 63 Kalamyli individuals, the MHC allele count hit 12, far exceeding expectations. This means broader pathogen recognition, stronger immune responses, and lower risks of mass infections. Notably, alleles tied to Class II antibodies showed strong activity against Babesia equi*, a blood parasite causing equine malaria, a leading cause of death in past Asian reintroduction programs. Next is digestion, the key to surviving a desert where 90% of vegetation is dry, nutrient-poor, lignin-rich grass. A 2022 gut microbiome analysis from field-collected fecal samples showed Przewalski's horses have elevated levels of two dominant bacteria, Fibrobacter and Ruminococcus, both renowned for breaking down cellulose and tough fibers. These microbes are rare at high concentrations in domestic horses, which rely on nutrient-rich feed or human-supplied digestive enzymes. In desert conditions, where low soil moisture makes grass hard, dry, and nitrate poor, these bacteria act as a biochemical engine, converting dry grass into survival energy. Not just surviving, but thriving. The biggest shock came from whole genome diversity analysis, detailed in a 2023 internal report by China's Wildlife Genomics Center. The Nucleotide Diversity Index, a measure of random nucleotide pair differences in the genome, reached 0.25. This matches African wild zebras, considered one of the planet's most genetically stable wild mammals. Strikingly, this surpasses most modern purebred dogs, ranging from 0.1 to 0.16, which suffer from artificial selection and prolonged inbreeding. This raises a profound question. Could Przewalski's horses, after centuries of captivity, transfers between European zoos, and reintroduction to Asian deserts, be on track to become a genetic ideal for other biological restoration programs? Many scientists believe so. At the 2024 International Wildlife Genomics Forum in Chengdu, experts from Kazakhstan and Hungary propose using Przewalski's genetic profile as a reference genome for assessing diversity in declining wild mammal species. According to sources from China's National Forestry Research Institute, the horse's gut microbiome and immune gene monitoring models are being tested for red deer and wild Tibetan yak conservation programs. In other words, from a species that barely escaped extinction, Przewalski's horses are becoming a living biological standard for a new generation of conservation, where every microbiome datum, every immune allele, and every genetic metric isn't just information, but a blueprint for preserving life in the 21st century. While U.S. institutes debate using CRISPR to resurrect woolly mammoths, China has already brought a species extinct in the wild back to life. Not through gene editing tech, not through lab-rebuilt DNA, but through a fusion of field genetics, behavioral design, biological infrastructure, and local social organization. In other words, China didn't create life digitally. They rebuilt a real, living, self-balancing ecosystem. The success of the Przewalski's horse project doesn't just impress conservationists. It's quietly reshaping global perceptions of China's biological role. From being labeled a hub for wildlife trafficking, a tropical deforestation driver, or a passive third party in global environmental agreements, China, through its wild horse model, has pivoted to an active shaper of postmodern conservation standards. It's no coincidence that Chinese state media calls this the era of conservation with Asian characteristics. The phrase carries clear intent. Conservation doesn't need to follow Western templates, academic ivory towers, or international aid. China's model is self-reliant, where genetic data is domestically generated, monitoring systems are home-designed, and funding comes from local businesses, not global funds. This is how China operationalizes biological sovereignty, not with loud declarations or opposition to international bodies, but by quietly building models the world can't ignore. The Przewalski project is a prime example. No WWF logo, no Smithsonian branding, no foreign delegations for validation, and no one can deny its tangible results. Nearly 400 individuals successfully released, inbreeding reduced by 40%, winter survival rates exceeding expectations, and a desert ecosystem thought unrecoverable, stabilizing thanks to the horse's presence. In a global geopolitical landscape shifting away from Western unipolarity, China is proving that international influence doesn't always stem from military tech, social media platforms, or financial institutions. It can come from biological value, when a nation can create, sustain, and spread life in ways others cannot. While many countries grapple with defining green tech or environmental innovation, China, through each hoofbeat of its wild herds in Xinjiang's deserts, shows that true innovation can come from instinct, if you know how to awaken, protect, and guide it. In a world rocked by climate crises, deforestation, biodiversity loss, and geopolitical instability. The question isn't whether we should preserve life, but whether we can do so independently, sustainably, and systematically. China, by quietly restoring a horse population once declared extinct, has delivered a stunning answer: yes, but not in the way the West expects. Not with costly digital solutions, not with intergovernmental aid models, but with a conservation strategy tied to land, data, business, and cultural identity. The Przewalski project is a testament to a postmodern conservation world where biological value transcends science to become soft power, a unit of influence, and a tool for global impact. Most striking is that China achieved this in under 3 decades, from 0 genetic stock to nearly 400 naturally breeding individuals, in one of the planet's harshest landscapes. For the US and Western nations, this model raises questions, not just about biology, but strategy. Are we underestimating nature as a competitive power arena? By focusing on AI, green energy, and deep-sea geopolitics, have we overlooked the simplest power, the ability to create, protect, and restore life? China may lack the emotive documentaries of Planet Earth or NGOs with $100 million budgets, but they have a herd, healthy, genetically diverse, unsubsidized, and redefining a nation's role in a post-ecological world. What do you think of China's sovereign conservation model? Is this the right path for developing nations, more independent, data-driven, and less reliant on international aid? If the US resurrects mammoths with CRISPR while China revives wild horses through field models, which is the sustainable future of conservation? We want to hear from you, those witnessing the redefinition of biology, power, and humanity's role in the natural world. If you believe life, not technology, is the enduring foundation for our planet's future, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to join Top 10 Discoveries Official. In exploring stories reshaping how the world views nature and national strategy. Top 10 Discoveries Official will return with more earth-shaking discoveries, thrilling space races, and untold stories of ambitions shaping the cosmos. Goodbye and see you soon.